Okay, if you are in 7 Excel, we are working from the Advanced 2 textbook. If you are in Math 8, we are working from the Course 3 textbook. We are doing the Chapter 5 review, and we're reviewing Lesson 5.3, which can be found on page 234. Now, Lesson 5.3 is solving systems of equations by elimination. And so today, they're not giving us the equations. They're giving us a word problem. Okay, you have a total of 5 quarters and dimes in your pocket. The value of the coins is 80 cents. Write and solve a system of linear equations to find the number x of dimes and the number y of quarters in your pocket. So our first equation is dealing with amount or number of items. So we have dimes plus quarters equals 5. We have an amount of 5 coins, 5 dimes and quarters. Our second equation is dealing with value. That means every term is going to have a value, the same kind of value. So we have 10-cent dimes plus 25-cent quarters for a total of 80 cents. Here's our 2 equations. This one's dealing with amount or number of items. Dimes and quarters equals 5 items. And this one is dealing with value. So each term is dealing with a value. 10-cent dimes plus 25-cent quarters equals 80 cents. So here's our system of equations. Dimes plus quarters equals 5. And 10-cent dimes plus 25-cent quarters equals 80 cents. So now I need to manipulate one of these equations so that when I combine them, one of my variables is eliminated. Oh, first, they told me dimes were x's. So I'm just going to put an x over my dime. And quarters were y's. Okay? So when I created the equation, I like to use D and Q for dimes and quarters because that's what we're dealing with. But then the problem told me the amount of X dimes or Y quarters. So all I did was just put X and Y over my D and Q. Now I need to manipulate one of these equations so that when I combine them, one of my variables is eliminated. So the first thing I want to do, I want to try to get rid of these decimals. So since this is a positive 1x, I want to turn this into a negative 1x. So I'm going to multiply that whole equation by negative 10. So negative 10 times 0.10x is going to be negative 1x. Negative 10 times 0.25y is going to be negative 2.5y. And negative 10 times positive 0.80 is going to be negative 8. So when I'm dealing with decimals, if I multiply by 10, my decimal point moves to the right one. Okay, now this equation can come straight across. X plus Y equals 5. When I combine these equations, this is technically a positive 1x. That positive 1 is invisible. So my x's cancel each other. They are eliminated. Y minus 2.5y is negative 1.5y. And 5 minus 8 is -3. I want to isolate my y. So I'm going to divide by -1.5. What I do to one side, I must do to the other. Y equals +2. Yay! Oh, but I'm not done. I have my y. I need to figure out my x. So I'm going to pick the easiest equation to work with. X plus y equals 5. And I am going to substitute this 2 for y. So x plus 2 equals 5. I want to isolate my x, so I'm going to get rid of this +2. I'm going to subtract 2. What I do to one side, I must do to the other. So these guys cancel. X equals 3. Yay! My solution is xy. My x is 3, my y is 2. But this solution does not answer the question, how many dimes and how many quarters? We have to go back up here. Remember, we decided x was dimes, or dimes were x, and that y was quarters, or that quarters were y. So x is dimes and y is quarters. So I have 3 dimes and 2 quarters. Okay, now last period I had a student ask me, well, what if I don't want to multiply that by -10? What if I multiplied the top equation by -0.10? Okay, let's try that. Let's see, because decimals are kind of funky. Everybody sees decimals differently. So here, what he wanted to do was he wanted to multiply this top equation by -0.10 to eliminate the x's. Well, let's see what happens. X plus y equals 5. 0.10x plus 0.25y equals 0.80. So what he wanted to do was multiply this equation by -0.10. Well, that's fine. We can do that. -0.10 times x is -0.10x. -0.10 times y is -0.10y. And -0.10 times 5 is -0.5. Okay? And then this equation will come straight across. Okay, now let's combine our equations. -0.10x and +0.10x, these guys cancel, they are eliminated. -0.10y plus 0.25y is now 0.15y equals -0.5 plus 0.8 is +0.3. I want to isolate my y, so I'm going to divide by 0.15. What I do to one side, I must do to the other. And y still equals 2, just like above. Y equals 2. Now I'm going to pick the easiest equation to work with, which I think is going to be x plus y equals 5. And I am going to substitute this 2 into the y. So x plus 2 equals 5. I want to isolate my x, so I'm going to get rid of this +2 by subtracting 2. What I do to one side, I must do to the other. X equals 3, which is exactly the same thing we had up above. We know that a solution is xy My X is 3 and my Y is 2. But 3, 2 does not answer the question. How many dimes? How many quarters? So we remember that X was dimes and Y was quarters. So we have 3 dimes and 2 quarters. Just like we did up above. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at that. There we go. So it didn't matter if I multiplied the bottom equation by -10 or the top equation by -0.10. Either way, I still had a variable that was eliminated and I still got the same answers. So you can manipulate whichever equation you want, and you can eliminate whichever variable you want. You will still end up with the same answer.